Aisha Khan came to Dubai chasing a dream, luxury, love, and a future she thought was guaranteed. But when she became pregnant with nightclub owner Omar Al-Saeed's child, that dream turned into a nightmare. One night, she walked into his club for a private talk and vanished without a trace. No body, no answers. Only dark secrets buried beneath Dubai's shining lights. What really happened to Aisha Khan? Dubai always looked like a giant playground for the rich, a city dripping in gold, the kind of place where the skyline glows like it's showing off, and every night feels like the weekend, with luxury cars roaring through Sheikh Zayed Road and influencers posing like royalty at rooftop lounges. In the middle of all that glam, Aisha Khan, a stunning young Indian expat with big dreams and a bigger heart, arrived thinking she'd finally found a life that didn't require struggling for every single inch. And she landed a job at a high-end beauty salon where she worked her magic making socialites look even more perfect than they already pretended to be. And every day she stared up at those crazy skyscrapers believing she deserves a shot at that type of life too. Her world flipped the night she crossed paths with Omar Al-Saeed, the smooth-talking owner of one of the most popular nightclubs in downtown Dubai, a man whose wealth wasn't just visible, it was loud, wrapped in designer brands, fancy watches, and a voice that felt like temptation itself. And for Aisha, his attention felt like winning the lottery because he showered her with expensive gifts, VIP access, candlelit dinners at beaches that looked straight out of a movie, and promises that made her heart race faster than the nightclub beats he controlled from the top-floor office, convincing her she wasn't just another face in the crowd, but someone special. Her friends warned her that nightclub owners don't usually come with fairy tale endings, but she brushed it off because Omar made her feel wanted in a way she'd never experienced before. And under Dubai's neon sky, surrounded by a life that sparkled from every angle, Aisha allowed herself to fall, not realizing that the glitz she admired was just a mask covering a darker world she never asked to. Enter, Aisha's world shifted the moment. She stared at the pregnancy test in her tiny studio apartment and saw the bold result that screamed positive, her hands shaking but her heart bursting with hope because she believed this was the start of her real future. A family with Omar, the man she thought she knew. She imagined soft baby clothes, a cozy apartment away from the loud party scene, and a traditional wedding that would bring their families together despite the cultural differences. And for the first time in a long while, she quit worrying about the struggle of survival because the life growing inside her gave her purpose. She planned to tell Omar in the most romantic way possible, but when the news finally slipped out one quiet evening at his penthouse, everything changed. His smile froze like someone hit pause on his emotions, his hands clenched. And instead of excitement, he hit her with a distant, "We'll talk later," followed by days of unread messages, canceled dates, and excuses about business problems. Aisha tried to convince herself it was temporary stress, that he would snap out of it and realize how lucky they were. But deep down, she saw the shift. The same man who once held her close in VIP lounges now barely looked her in the eyes. She quit her salon job thinking he would provide support like he promised countless times. But now the silence from his end grew louder than the club music he lived around, turning her dreams into anxiety and sleepless nights. Instead of embracing fatherhood, he started pushing her away. Claiming his reputation and complicated connections made this terrible timing, and while she begged for reassurance, Omar acted like the pregnancy was an inconvenience threatening the lifestyle he fought to protect. The joy that once lit her up turned into a storm of worry. But she wasn't about to let anyone reduce her or her baby to a secret. She wanted commitment and respect. No matter how much he tried to dodge responsibility, Aisha reached her breaking point when Omar kept acting like the pregnancy was just some random problem that would eventually disappear, and she refused to let him pretend that nothing had changed because she wasn't just carrying a baby. She was carrying his legacy, and that meant something. She demanded what she believed was rightfully hers. Marriage, security, and acknowledgement, telling him that if he didn't step up, she'd go to the authorities or even his influential family. And those words hit him harder than she expected, because his entire reputation in Dubai's elite nightlife world was built on the illusion that he was a free, untouchable king who couldn't be tied down by anything, especially not a pregnant girlfriend. Every time she pushed, Omar pulled further away, claiming his business enemies would use the baby against him. But she knew there was more. She sensed secrets creeping behind his excuses, shadows following his every move, friends that looked more like bodyguards than companions, and a lifestyle that always felt a little too dangerous. She told her closest friend she'd expose everything if he tried to ghost her, even the shady backroom deals and the random visits from men who looked like they came from the dark side of Dubai's underground scene. Suddenly, Omar's sweet gestures turned into warnings disguised as advice, telling her to keep quiet for her own safety. But Aisha wasn't the type to stay silent when her future was at stake, especially now that her unborn child depended on her courage. The arguments got heated, threats slid into their conversations like poison, and every message she sent demanding responsibility pushed her closer to danger she couldn't see. Omar wasn't just avoiding fatherhood, he was protecting secrets that could burn his whole empire to the ground. And Aisha's persistence made her a problem that someone like him couldn't afford to have around, turning love into war without her fully realizing the risk she was walking into. The night Aisha disappeared was supposed to be the night everything finally made sense, because Omar suddenly called her after weeks of acting cold and distant, telling her he wanted to talk privately at his nightclub after closing hours, and even though her gut twisted with nerves, she convinced herself this was the moment he would finally accept their baby and give her the commitment she'd been begging for. She dressed up in a beautiful maternity dress that showed her glowing bump, sprayed her favorite perfume, and stood in the mirror imagining a future where her child would grow up with a father who actually cared. And as she stepped out, she texted her friend that she felt hopeful for the first time in months. When she arrived, the bouncers already recognized her. They didn't even bother checking ID or asking questions like they used to. Just opened the velvet rope and let her walk through a nearly empty club where the music had died and the lights were dimmed down to shadows. Security cameras captured her slowly walking toward the back office hallway, holding her belly with a gentle smile like she was protecting her dreams. And that was the last moment anyone could confirm she was alive. Because what happened inside that back room never made it to public eyes. Omar later claimed they argued and she stormed out. But if that were true, why did no camera show her leaving? And why did her phone go dark just minutes after she stepped into his private area? Multiple staff members noticed the club's sound system blasting louder than usual, covering up any noise from behind closed doors. And a few workers said they saw panic in Omar's face when he came out later, sweating and shouting for everyone to leave while guards moved around like they were cleaning up a disaster instead of wrapping up a normal night. And as the sun started rising over Dubai's shiny skyline, Aisha had vanished into thin air, like her existence was wiped away the second she pushed too close to the truth. Aisha's friends wasted no time going to the police when she didn't respond to messages or show up anywhere the next day, because a pregnant woman that close to giving birth doesn't just disappear for fun. And Dubai authorities took the report seriously at first, questioning Omar, checking phone records, and reviewing whatever security footage the nightclub still had. Except suddenly there was a technical issue, and huge chunks of the camera data from that night were conveniently corrupted, which made everyone's eyebrows shoot up. Omar acted calm, too calm, telling investigators Aisha left after an argument and blocked him, trying to paint her as dramatic and unstable. But that explanation didn't match the last ping of her phone, which placed her inside the club before everything went silent forever. Rumors exploded across the city's gossip circles. Some said Omar was mixed up with dangerous businessmen who laundered money through the nightlife scene. Others whispered about human trafficking connections or secret debts he couldn't afford to let anyone expose, especially not someone emotional, pregnant, and threatening his entire empire. Her passport was never used again. Her bank account frozen untouched, and her social media went dead like someone unplugged her life entirely in a single night. Meanwhile, Omar kept showing up at parties, acting like nothing happened, sipping top-shelf drinks next to influencers while police claimed they were still investigating. Aisha's family flew from India, heartbroken and desperate, begging for answers. But without a body or a confession, the truth stayed trapped behind corruption, lawyers, and powerful people who could make evidence disappear faster than smoke in club lights. Friends who tried to push for justice were warned to drop it if they cared about their own safety, because accusing a man with that much money and muscle wasn't just bold, it was suicidal. And slowly, the case started fading from headlines, as if the city wanted to erase her memory, rather than admit a pregnant woman vanished under its sparkling. Watch investigators refused to let the case go cold without digging deeper into every angle, because even if the cameras mysteriously glitched and witnesses suddenly forgot how to talk, the truth always leaks somewhere. And Omar's perfect alibi started cracking like cheap glass when detectives noticed how every bouncer he employed kept switching up their stories. One saying she left crying, another saying she left smiling, another claiming he didn't even see her at all, which made the whole situation smell rotten. Then police checked Omar's phone locations and found out he wasn't home sleeping that night like he swore. He was at the marina around 3 a.m., which wouldn't be suspicious if not for the fact that a janitor from the club quietly came forward saying he saw two security guards carrying a massive black duffel bag out the back door shortly after Aisha walked in, the kind of bag no one uses for clothes or club supplies. And that bag went straight into Omar's luxury boat, a sleek machine he rarely used on weekdays. GPS from the boat showed it left the harbor and sailed into deep Gulf waters under darkness, returning hours later with no trace of what was taken out. And it didn't help Omar that he tried to bribe the janitor to remember nothing, proving he had something he desperately needed to hide. Detectives even found tiny traces of blood in the office hallway, but lawyers quickly argued it wasn't enough to prove anything violent happened, blaming an old accident since the nightclub bar fights were common. And every time investigators pushed harder, some powerful lawyer or influential friend stepped in to block progress, making it clear that Omar wasn't just wealthy, he was protected. Meanwhile, Aisha's personal items like her passport, jewelry, even the baby clothes she bought magically disappeared from her apartment, like someone erased her existence on purpose, turning every clue into more suspicion, but never enough evidence for a courtroom, leaving detectives haunted because they knew exactly what happened. They just couldn't prove it. Not without a body or a confession from the devil behind the designer shades. Even after months turned into years, the case of Aisha Khan remained like a ghost floating through the luxurious streets of Dubai, haunting anyone who dared to remember her name. Because while the nightclub kept pumping loud music and tourists kept snapping photos under neon skylines, a family somewhere in India continued praying for answers that never came, holding on to a baby ultrasound photo like a piece of their daughter's soul. Omar's life barely slowed down. New girlfriends, new flashy cars, and the same smug smile as if he never once felt the weight of a missing pregnant woman who trusted him with her entire future. And every time reporters tried digging into the story, they mysteriously backed off like someone whispered consequences into their ears. Aisha wasn't the type of girl who would run away, especially not 8 months into pregnancy when her baby could arrive any day. So everyone who cared about her knew deep in their bones that whatever happened wasn't her choice, and that somewhere out there, hidden beneath the waves or buried under secrets thicker than Dubai's luxury image, the truth waited like something rotten struggling to stay buried. The scariest part was how common her disappearance became in whispered conversations. Workers in the nightlife industry mentioning other women who went missing after dating powerful men. Families abroad posting desperate Facebook messages that disappeared after a few days. And more stories that looked way too similar to be coincidences. Aisha's mother still keeps her room untouched, the clothes folded neatly, a tiny crib waiting for a baby who never took a breath. And every phone call from Dubai sends a shock of hope through her heart, even though she knows it'll just be another dead end. Omar may think he won, living loudly while Aisha's voice was silenced forever. But the real truth is that predators like him can hide behind gold-plated walls and VIP access only for so long before their monsters claw their way into the light. And when justice finally comes knocking, it won't ask for permission, because a mother's tears carry a louder prayer than money ever could. and someone somewhere will speak the truth that puts Aisha's ghost to rest.